Hello, everyone. And again, thank you for allowing Jamaica to be a part of the 5G Americas once again. We're exploring a very interesting topic. We're looking at empowering digital horizon, and I'm zoning in on connectivity, a perspective, a birthright, or a privilege. Let us begin. But first, I would like to touch on who we are. So the Spectrum Management Authority is the regulator who, by virtue of the Telecommunications Act 2000, is the regulatory organ who manages the radio frequency for the government of Jamaica for the people. Our primary drivers, we have the ICT policy objectives, section 4, and they're clearly stated: facilitate the deployment of existing and emerging wireless technologies, ensuring that maximum economic benefit and promoting development, of course, attracting investment in our country and within local facets, establishing a protocol for declaring and treatment of licensing exempts on spectrum. Under our Vision 2030, we fall under two outcomes: the national outcome number 9, strong economic infrastructure, and national outcome number 11, a technology-enabled society. Again, everything is linked back, of course, to the UN Sustainable Goals, and we feel that we are measured under Goal 9 and Goal 11 of this. Now, our key functions as the regulator, we plan for the use of the spectrum by our frequency allocation table coming out of our discussions at World Radio Conference. And then we look at how the frequencies are allocated by the voting rights and how the region comes together with harmonization. And there are a number of different facets there. There is the ITU and there is the CTU. And we try to make a certain alignment within the region, especially for the incumbents. Licensing, of course, of new users and existing users, because there are times when more spectrum is required, and we'll see further along in the presentation. Monitoring and compliance is absolutely critical to ensure that persons are complying with the spectrum assignments. And then we, of course, enable to minimize interference by having over 14 different sites across the island and a number of other spectrum analyzer tools, from zone technology to 2 portable units which traverse the island where we do triangulation. Critical, of course, the collection of spectrum fees, which go to the coffers for our governments to ensure that the wheels of government remain turning. And again, most importantly, we provide telecommunication guidance for the government of Jamaica and also in regional and local stakeholders. And that's when the CTU comes to play. The sustainable goals are popping up again, but not to worry. So let's look at Jamaica at a glance. So Jamaica is an island state. It's not very big. It's just 10,990 square kilometers. Our current population is approximately 3 million as of the last note that was done in April of this year. Nonetheless, a census is in tray, and we're going to get those figures at the end of this fiscal space. Our real GDP growth expected an average only 1.9% between 2023 to 2024, as again, our economy is based on tourism primarily. There's some degree of mining and other quarry activities, but our main driver is tourism. And as we all know, COVID actually had reduced the amount of tourist travel and that type of thing. So we're seeing an upturn now in the economy since everything has opened up. Education, very important. As at 2022, as you can see, males was 94.1%, females was 98.4% at the primary level. And of course, we have a young society. If you look at the stats right there, the breakdown, we're looking at 25.1 under the age of 15. The age, if you look down as we go, the majority of the age is between 29 to 44. We have a certain, a matured group, but they're very low. in terms of the population. When we look at rural and versus urban, you find that we have a lot of the concentration in the urban areas, in the cities of Kingston, Portmore, and of course, Montego Bay, the main areas of tourism and business. This is where we see the population really going. Now, when we took a stock of this, and I believe I actually shared this with the group last year, we looked at what we are serving and the underserved and the unserved, of course. We had pockets, as you can see, in the Portland area of Rhode Island. And even in the interior, we see a situation where, because of the terrain of the land, a number of persons are not really served. And as you can see, the per household underserved approximately 914, and in total 100, maybe I would say 113 estimated if you round up the figures. Now, that's one of the reasons why the government is very strong on the broadband uptake. And as a government, we sat down and we came together and we looked at accessibility, affordability, and availability. These are the key pillars in terms of driving. Then we looked at, with the economists and a number of other experts in the room, on the average, the consumption per month in Jamaica was about 5 gigahertz. But when we looked now at the future, this is jumping, it's increasing because there's a high demand. Persons have gone online with their business model, and a number of places are now using hybrid. Even schools are still using hybrid. So the future looks where we're going to be using much more data as we see it. And again, the trend is throughout the area. If you look at this, it's this graph, it's showing North America's growth. There's an upward swing in the number of countries, and the global averages say by 2025, it's going to be at least 25 gigabits. So the 4 pillars of action, universal broadband access. One of the things, we have to maximize existing assets, which is really using shared infrastructure, deliver shovel-ready projects, incentivize investments in broadband and cellular infrastructure, and most importantly, we're looking at modernizing government and trying to remove barriers or facilitate growth and development in the economy. We are very proud of this because we did a successful beauty contest auction of the 700 band 13, and we had 3 objectives in mind when we did this: increasing competitiveness in the Jamaican market, bringing coverage, as I showed before, to the underserved areas, and generating revenue for the treasuries to facilitate government strategies. The alignment with these strategies, again, we saw the release of new mobile spectrum bands. For example, the 600 band. We went recently to the ITU and we have put a footnote in this band, which is normally reserved for broadcasting. We took a portion for IMT. And extending the 850 megahertz band 5 to include the band 626, offering an additional 15 megahertz in a low band for new network deployments. Extending the 1900 megahertz band 2 to include band 25, and again, more spectrum. So you see the common thread is there. Now, one of the most important things that is happening as well is that we are sunsetting the 2G devices. We're seeing that a number of the incumbents are started and working with their customers to migrate these devices from this 2G generation to upwards to 3 and 4G and possibly even 5. And of course, finally, the recommendation to support expanding of the 5G gigahertz for unlicensed use. And we'll talk about that throughout the presentation. Right now, as we speak, these are our key stakeholders in the space. The National Work Agency, under the heading of working with partnership, I would say rather, with eGov Jamaica Limited, which is the ICT regulator. We're looking at ReadyNet, Flow, Digicel, IslandNet, and a new entry to the market, which is Neptune Communications. So let's take a look at Digicel, for example, the mobile network LTE coverage. And as you can see at a glance, they're doing well. Again, the interior is a challenge, but more and more they are doing it a lot better and covering those pockets which they're small communities. So overall, they estimated that 87% of the population is covered, layered both by the AWS and the 1900s in major towns and cities. And of course, they have cited how many sites, which is 861, mobile sites modernized with 580 LTE sites island-wide, which is quite good. So this is an idea of the coverage. But again, if you notice in the mountainous parts of Jamaica, there are some gaps. Then we look at flow. Similar picture where their coverage is a little bit less, again, because flow has much more fiber than Digicel. So even though the coverage is there, you find that the mountainous areas of the island are still trying to be captured, but plans are in foot, to improve this. Now, this is at a very nice timeline for ReadyNet, and it started when they did a trial, and they did it in a place called Mullet Hall, Portland. Very remote mountainous location with no internet service, as we saw before, where those areas of green on the map of Jamaica. In 2020, everyone knew what happened. There was a lockdown due to the pandemic, and there was a crisis. Schools were not connected. So they had the mandate to go in and to set up over 150 schools, which they did in 48 days, giving 98% availability on the internet and online access. And additionally, they looked also at the community Wi-Fi projects, and they set up a number of projects in terms of communities and helping persons to get back on track. And the first parish was St. Mary, and over 15 public Wi-Fi hotspots were also implemented at this time across the island. And again, of course, the expansion business to C, consumer and business to business, and of course, providing some redundancy in the areas of our nation and telemedicine services, because again, not everybody could visit a clinic. So this is an idea of their outreach across the area. And again, if you notice now, they're moving more into the interior of the island, like the other incumbents prior. They're now touching the spaces where there was little or no connectivity using satellite, of course. And this is a picture of how the terrain looks. So can you see, you get an idea, it's very challenging putting up fiber as well as even, running microwave links, very expensive. So satellite, we believe, is a good fit. And again, if you look at the population of these small townships, it's roughly around 600 persons living in a community. But again, it is important because everyone needs connectivity. So that's a type of satellite, and there is an actual location. The team setting up during and then the community was so excited when this was happening. And at the end of it, we all got together. I mean, that's my team and I, alongside my minister, of course, and the members of the ReadyNet TV company. This is also showing a picture, tells you 1,000 words. This is again a rural community, St. Mary. And again, if you look at all the vegetation around, and this is a hotspot that they set up in Hamilton Mountain. And again, 9 communities got this type of technology, and it was free access to the community funded under our USF program, delivering broadband services. And this is around the island, as we saw. This is also a depiction of a school, and this is actually where the school is located. Again, you see this terrain, very lush, very green, but it's a small community. This allowed for persons to come to school or come in an area, get applications like online school. And again, it serves not only the school, but within the communities and the residents around the area. So this is also a very successful way and still in existence in this part of St. Mary. So the sites to be completed over 2022 are on the map here. Again, And I'm focusing my attention really in the interior of the island where there was little or no coverage from the other incumbents. IslandNet, that was IslandNet before. Additionally, we have GovNet. The GovNet, as you can see now on screen, is a national emergency communication backbone for Jamaica. So the government, through partnership, public sector and private sector partnership, we have run fiber around the island and utilizing, of course, some degree of microwave links for redundancies to connect back to the fiber backbone, giving us an emergency communication network for government agencies, public schools, and a number of other agencies across the island. As it moves, again, the architecture, now we're showing on screen the microwave links by itself before we show the fiber. And you saw some degree of the microwave links, but this gives a clear depiction where the microwave links are actually being used and the supernodes are demonstrated in red. Now, here are some, again, the project timelines for GovNet. The National Emergency Communication Fiber Backbone has started. It was started in June 2022. It continues because there are different phases to it. I believe phase 1 and phase 2 are in tray, and they're moving to phase 3, possibly by the end of next fiscal, which is 2024. Then we have the communication backbone to be completed this year. Urban traffic management is continuing. It started in 2022 and continue to be improved as we go through and we roll out. So they're all things. GovNet core fiber links, that's, as you saw from the picture, is in tray and continues. The educational network in progress, and we hope to finalize and complete that with all existing schools by 2024. The National Public Safety Mobile Network and Consulting Plan continues. This is a very interesting one with Port Royal, one of our oldest cities and townships. We're planning, there's actually a floating pier in this location. And what the thought is to just make this area completely smart and make it attractive for tourism as one of the pullers into this space. And of course, the National Underground Fiber Optics Cable Backbone continues. One of the things that the government has taken on is every time there is a highway or new road built, the conduits are in place to ensure that we run the fiber underground. Whoops, I am so sorry. I'm moving ahead of myself. So let's go back to that slide. So at the end of the day, we have another entry into the market. And one of the things Neptune brings to the table is a VSAT service. And it's really a network which comprises of GEO, MEOs, and LEOs. And again, giving another tier of redundancy. Because although we have dark fiber coming into the island, I believe at 5 points across the island, now there's an alternative utilizing satellite technology again, with a varied network with, and this is where we're going to show you what they're actually doing in terms of coverage. So this is the VSAT footprint right now. And again, they're using a mixture of different operators, and they're able to coverage the Caribbean basin, as you see, and even some parts of the top of Florida to the almost to the Gulf of Mexico, not so much, but more Panama area, and into certain parts of the South American area as well. But the whole idea is they're trying to move to look at the Caribbean as their territory. So on the future, what are the trends? What is the things trending locally and on the global frontier? We're still rolling out ATSC 3.0. We had some challenges due to the pandemic, but of course, we're still on track for the 2 primary modes of content delivery. The next gen television, which is over the top, and then use of set-top boxes, where of course there's fiber to the homes. We're looking very interesting at this study in India, actually, and I have raised it here because in India and in Jamaica as well, a lot of our young people actually consume their content on their phone. So the broadcasters, along with the mobile operators, is pushing whereas the phone will have a chip in it, an ATSC 3.0 chip. So they'll offload the content of streaming to that space and then allow for the mobile use of the phone through the broadcasters. What does it mean? High portability for OTT services, improve emergency warning alerts, and of course, there is always an educational component to everything that we do. The next interesting thing that's happening in the space, given it's a RRC year, is the whole matter of the 1200 band consideration. And I put licensed and unlicensed just to tease a number of persons that are listening on. What is being considered globally? Let's take a look. So of course, 5G needs, fifth generation needs more spectrum. And RF is a limited and a scarce resource. So we're looking at the mid bands and the high bands, and we're seeing high capacity for low infrastructure, short-term capacity, more infrastructure, where we're looking at this space. Interestingly enough, GSMA projected the following. They said in the sub 1 gigahertz, 1 to 6 gigahertz and above, there was an economic benefit in using it from IMT in Latin America and in the Caribbean areas. They estimated a revenue uptake of approximately 20 million US dollars. And again, they're saying that economies would benefit for an estimated 1.2 GDP growth. And they've broken it down in the areas where they believe that could benefit from this technology. We look at agricultural, mining, manufacturing, professional, financial, government services, and other ICT trades. And then now we are looking at what has been happening over the period. Globally, we have some pioneers in the market. So we're looking at who has decided to use the bands for the 700, 800 gigahertz. We have LAM, we have USA, we have the EU, UK, China, Australia, all of them are listed here, New Zealand, Japan, India, and South Africa. And what we're seeing is a mixture of both the low band, mid band, and high bands above the 6 gigahertz that persons are using. But then now we have the 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi technology, where there's an argument and there's a new standard, which is Wi-Fi 6E, and even they're testing, in some instances, Wi-Fi 7. So IEEE 802.11 standardized the Wi-Fi 6 quite recently. And what we're seeing is that products are coming out. There are a number of other certifications, and the ecosystem now is shaping up. And this is what the promise is for low power operation within the house, the Internet of Things. And we've seen out of the last CES show this year in January, we saw quite a bit of low power devices using Wi-Fi 6E and extended to, the use of the 6 gigahertz band. We saw also low power indoor, and then there is the possibility for standard power down the road. This announcement came where Broadcom shipped over 1 billion chips of Wi-Fi 6E chips across, and again, there is a demand for these chips. And this was done last year. So again, there's a rapid demand for these chips globally. And this just to give you an idea of the products out there. So we're having routers, we're having smart TVs, smartphones, desktops, laptops, a myriad of products is using this technology. So again, pushing the need or the demand for having more Wi-Fi available. Now, any 5G plan, whether we go license, in that space or unlicensed in that mid-band field, we have to look at what is there. We have to look at why we're using the spectrum, how we're going to be using it. Right now in that 1200 band, we have a number of incumbents who are using it and they're licensed. The lower end of the tier is a possibility we can open it up more to facilitate the Wi-Fi 6. But we also have to look at our infrastructure. With the rollout of Wi-Fi 5th generation, as you know, that millimeter wave needs, shorter hops. So again, we have to focus on small cells and how we're going to do that in terms of building code and a number of other things and shared infrastructure. The regulation definitely has to be updated. It's a constant flux, because I know we are still having treated somewhat, although it was kind of held in abeyance, the spectrum cap. We're now looking at the screen very informally, and the screen process is rarely where we look at an application on its merit, seeing how it's going to be touching the environment, the persons, the unserved persons, and then making a recommendation to our minister to approve or to have, some form of stipulations under the license. And demand and supply will drive this. And again, on the horizon with all of the new technology is cybersecurity and, of course, data protection. The Act of Data Protection comes into trade this year in Jamaica, and that's something that we have to pay very close attention to. Now, I think my time has run out, and I've hoped I've given you quite a bit of information on what we're doing as a nation and as a region. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your time. And again, you have an amazing time at this summit. All the very best. Bye-bye.